welcome to the podcast. My hair's a wreck today. I look like I stuck my finger in the electric socket.
It's all good, buddy.
It's been a long weekend. It's great to be back on the Prospect Podcast today. We have a fantastic guest with us today. Talk some football. Talk some Washington State football. So which will really be interesting. So we're going to talk with Masaki Matsumoto, which we're really excited to talk to him about everything football, especially on that West Coast there. He's the coach out in Lincoln High School. He really active out on social media, does a lot of great things there. I mean, talks a lot about, the things that it takes to like help athletes be successful. He's a fantastic football coach, oh, by the way, as well. But he really does. I mean, that's one of the things that I noticed that his platform, he's used it really to help a lot of athletes. He's built a huge following out there in social media, at least on Twitter, with over 12,000 followers, and really does a great job of reaching out, not just obviously among his own community from a football standpoint, but around the country, and really takes a lot of stuff from a lot of great leaders and makes sure other people have the things that they need to do from a recruiting standpoint, understand what football is all about. Hopefully we could touch on some of that. I'm curious what his thoughts are on that. And then we'll dive into all the things. So it's really great to meet you. It's great to have you on the podcast. As always, I have Coach D with me to my left today. And Coach, you're in the prime spot right above us all today. So we never know who's going to be in which spot. So that's only StreamYard knows that whatever their algorithm is on that thing, how they work that out. But it's great to have you on, Coach. We're excited to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you. By the way, that was a pretty cool introduction, screen and music. But yeah. I've never been part of. I've done podcasts, but yeah, that was a cool introduction.
It's a little Jersey flavor for the intro because we get bumping out here. That's really kind of how we set the tone.
Yeah. If I really used any of the songs I probably listened to back in the day, I'd probably just get flagged from YouTube. So at least these, I get these royalty free. So
yes.
I could use these versions. Coach, it's really great to have you on. And if you could really talk about your journey as a coach and kind of how you also started to really run with your platform and dive into not just coaching, but giving back as well.
Yeah, I'll try to give you, I guess maybe like the shorter version or quicker version of my coaching journey. So I was going to grad school in San Diego, and I was, I think, like 23 then. And I met a friend at church, and she asked me if I was interested in coaching a JV team at the school she was working at, because they were looking for some JV coaches, and she knew that I played college football, and so my classes were at night, and I had a little part-time job, so I had the time, and so I told her I would, and I started coaching a JV team there at Cathedral Catholic, which was a blessing because it's a powerhouse in California, and I learned under great coaches when I started my career. And then I moved up to varsity
in San Diego or in
okay. San Diego. Yep. And then the next year the head coach said, hey, you did a great job with the JV team. We want you to be a varsity linebacker coach. So I coached there, and we won a CIF championship there, and again, just was able to learn under a great program. And then I had finished my grad program, and I was looking for a full-time job as a teacher at that point, and there was nothing in San Diego, but I still wanted to live in Southern California, so I applied to a bunch of schools in LA, and there was this brand new school opening up in East Hollywood, and I figured, hey, brand new school, they probably need coaches. So I applied for a special education teaching job there, and I got the job. And they had already hired a head football coach, and so I came on as an assistant. And from 2008 to 2011, 4 years, I was there. And we went 4-36 in 4 years. And, you know, it was a brand new school, and a lot of the kids there didn't know how to play football. And yeah, it was, you know, I love the kids there, but yeah, it was pretty tough, you know, to go through those 4 seasons. And then 2012 came around, and the principal had let the head coach go, and she asked me if I wanted to take over because, you know, I was already teaching there, and she knew that I had a good relationship with the kids, and yeah, I was only, you know, 28 then, and I didn't know if I was ready. I mean, we were really bad, and I was still young, and it's an inner city school, and, you know, there's a lot of things that come with that, obviously. So I emailed the head coach at Cathedral that night, and I just asked him, hey, I don't know if I should take this job. I don't know if I'm ready. You know, it's the inner city. Like, I'm young. I'm not, you know. And he emailed me back, and he said, you know what, you know, Masaki, I've never coached in the inner city. I've always been at Cathedral. But what I do know is whether they're inner city kids or suburban kids, kids just want to be loved. And I know you'll love those kids. And that kind of hit me. And over the weekend, I just thought about it. And on Monday, I accepted the job. And 2012 was our first season, and we went 8-3. We turned the program around. I was there for 2 more years. Went to the semifinals both years. Just couldn't make it to the championship game. Couldn't quite get there. But yeah, and then 2015 came around. And I had grown up in Seattle, and my mom was getting older, and I felt like I needed to move back at some point. And my high school coach, Coach Shapiro, he emailed me an article of John Kitna leaving Lincoln High School. He had, you know, taken over the program because that's where he went. And after he retired from the Seahawks, he took over that program, built it up. And after 3 seasons, he took a job in Texas. And so, you know, Coach Shapiro said, hey, I know you're looking to come back up here. You would do great here, still inner city. You know, Coach Kitna put a lot of resource into the program. You should think about it. And so that night I did some research, and then I emailed the principal my resume, and yeah, and then we did a Skype interview a few weeks later, and I got the job. And so spring of 2015, I moved up here, and I've been at Lincoln and just finished our 11th season. So that's sort of my short, you know, short version of my coaching history.
That's really, really interesting journey. You've been up and down the whole West Coast there. It's quite a journey. Cathedral is a powerhouse program, so it's a place that's had a lot of success, and so it's interesting that you had some really great journey, and then all of a sudden you had a dip as far as when you're assistant. And I'm curious when well, before we dive into that, what were some of the things that you thought you take with you going forward from those guys like Coach Shapiro and Cathedral guys that you really learned from, and what was it that you learned there that you really taken forward?
Yeah, well, I mean, I took really everything from Cathedral because I hadn't coached before, you know, and everything they did. I try to do. I learned. I'm a defensive guy. You know, for the last 10 years, I've been blessed to have a close friend who's an offensive coordinator. So I trust him with the offense, and I kind of just try to stay out of his way for the most part. But you know, I learned everything in terms of defense from John Montali, the defensive coordinator who's still there at Cathedral, and you know, just simple things as, you know, practice plan and scripting and all the things that the coach I coached under after never did, you know, which it's like hard to fathom and believe. You know, I brought to that school, Bernstein, in East Hollywood, and you know, and just I'm a hard worker. I always say I'm not the smartest guy, but I work pretty hard, and I go visit coaches and I steal ideas all the time. And so just doing all that stuff, I brought to Bernstein, and we were able to turn it around.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing is that the ability to turn around the program, especially a program that hasn't had success. That's always a very difficult process. First, let's dive into like the part that wasn't good. When you were an assistant at East Hollywood and you got that opportunity there before you became the head coach. What was it? So when you came into the program, because we always talk about all the time, like things that made people successful, stuff like that. What were some of the things that you immediately saw over time that you're like, man, like no matter what we do, if we're not doing these things, and these things are hurting us from a chance to be successful. I want to make sure I don't do or do some things that they're not doing, right? So what were some of the things there that you really were able to put in your back pocket and say, hey, these are things we don't want to do, or hey, we must do certain things because these guys didn't do that and we were unsuccessful because of it?
Yeah. No, that's a great point. It was like I said, everything was, like just like God's plan, God's timing. I feel like
Right.
because again, I came from a great program, and then right away I went to a really badly ran program, and
Right.
so all the time I was just like right away I would compare, and oh man, well, we used to do this, but we don't do this here, and so I think that really imprinted in my head, like, okay, this is what a good program looks like, and this is what we shouldn't be like, and again, just simple things as there was never a practice plan. There's no practice plan. He would just kind of tell us right before practice what we were doing. And when you don't have a practice plan, like periods go over all the time, and and then you lose kids' focus, you lose, and whether kids admit it or not, they love structure and they want that, and there wasn't any of that. He controlled everything. Like he wouldn't let really like coaches, coach. Like he was a micromanager. He was a DC OC special teams, and
yeah, he did it all.
Like, yeah, he did it all. And maybe my fourth year, like the final season, he let me, do a little bit of like help him with the game plan, but yeah, there was no off-season program. There wasn't anything like we did that was like motivational or character development, any of that stuff. And so it was just bad. When I'll never forget, again, I was coming from Cathedral, and him and I met before the school year started, or before summer football started, and I remember I said, so what, can I see your playbook, or so I can study it, and I remember he pulled out a bunch of notebook papers. Like it was like kind of like messy and folded up, and here's like, here's some of the things that we do. And it was just like very unorganized. And he used to always say, I don't really believe in playbook because I'm paranoid. I don't want it to like get out, and it's all in here. And I'm like, well, that's great, but then how do other people learn?
How's everybody else supposed to learn?
Yeah. Like if it's great that you know it, but but like the assistants don't really know it because it's not on paper or on Huddle or anything. And so it was that kind of gave me an idea of like, I'm kind of worried about like starting under this guy. And then it just and then my instincts were right.
Interesting. And no off-season program is mind-blowing to me. I don't know how you could be successful without that.
Well, not really a structured one.
But structured one.
Right.
He would say,
no accountability.
Open. Yeah, like he would say the weight room's open, but nothing structured. Like
the other part that's hard about that is I'm sure there were players on the team, even if they weren't football guys or whatever, now they're looking at it and now their heads turn to you, and you kind of have to follow suit and be that good soldier and kind of paint a picture when in your head you're going, look, these guys deserve way more. Like, guys, just follow along. Like, that's really hard, especially, you know what I mean? Like, especially when you're coming from a program like you did where it's the highest of the high, state championship, like the standard is set here. Now you go to a new place and you kind of just got to be that good soldier, kind of just like waiting in the wings and not really having a lot of say in a lot of things. That's really tough to do. But I'm sure that shaped you.
I was gonna say, first couple years, I would give him suggestions and, hey, what do you think about this? And then once I sort of realized he's not really receptive, I just kind of made a promise to myself, but also to the kids in my head that, all right, like, I don't agree with a lot of these things, but I'm going to be here for the kids and just be super committed to the coach and just do whatever he asks me to do with no like bitterness or resentment or nothing, because at the end of the day, he is the head coach and I am an assistant, and so that was important for me in my journey, because that allowed me to be an assistant and with a servanthood mentality, and too many assistants these days, especially the young guys, they want to move up fast and, they think they know it all. But I think it was good for me to be there just to really learn how to be a good assistant, and I think to be a good assistant, again, it's not going to be ideal, but you still signed up to be this man's assistant. And so I have to serve him whether I agree with things or not.
No doubt. That's one of the most difficult things to do. And it's a lost art form among assistant coaches now. Because you actually learn, it's one of those things that like every assistant, I think, and I was a head coach for 12 years. But when I was an assistant, like that was one of the things that you really had to learn. You had to learn that, okay, you might have your own ideas. This person has their ideas, okay? And you can figure out for yourself in your own time what you think are good ideas or bad ideas. Write those down, because when you become a head coach, but at the same time you try to figure out what they want to do and figure out how you can make that work, or whatever your whatever within your job role is. I think that's an important thing, because I think it helps you. I'm sure you feel the same way. It helps you be able to structure programs for assistants to be able to understand, like, hey, this is what your role is. And you're right, though. I think you brought up a really good point, and I'd love for you to talk more about it. That part has changed a lot in football because of the idea to move up and this and all that kind of stuff. And there's so much information readily available. Like, I can pull up a video on any kind of offense, any kind of play, any kind of system, and feel and watch. If you're a fairly smart guy, you can watch it and be like, okay, this is how they block it. This is what they're doing, and have a decent idea of how to run different things and think, oh, this would be great. But you have to be able to learn from your head coach as to a lot of the other things, as far as to be able to get things out of players, motivating them. What you talked about from the beginning, which I think is really important too, is, how to love up your players, how to understand your players. And I think those are things that come before the opportunity to become a head coach, because even if you have instincts there that are good, there's still a lot of other things that are important. And giving input is not just about a play that you see. It's like, how does it fit into the big picture? So talk about how you like to guide your own assistants on that and try to get them to understand, because you've been at Lincoln for 11 years. So you probably had assistants come and go, and you probably had some guys like your offensive coordinator who've been with you for a while. Talk about some of the things that you try to do to help those guys progress.
Yeah. Well, so number one, we have a staff meeting at the beginning of, in January, to go over like off-season workouts and schedule and all that. And we go over coaches' expectations in that meeting. And then we have another one right before spring football. Again, discussing spring and summer schedule and all that. And then again, just go over coaches' expectations. And so a lot of the things that we talk about in terms of like coaching expectations, it's not like X's and O's, it's how to treat kids and the do's and the don'ts. And, just an example, right? Hey, you can rip a kid, right? But make sure you love up on them after practice, and let them know why you ripped into him, right? Those things are important. Things like, hey, demand, but don't demean, right? So these are the expectations that I teach them and go over like on a PowerPoint. So that I think sets the precedence and kind of shows them, okay, besides the football part, like these are how you connect with kids and how you get the most out of kids. And then just throughout the season or whatever, like, if I see things, I always make it a point to make sure I talk to them and say, hey, what you did yesterday, that wasn't acceptable, but this is how you should handle that, and so I'm always trying to give private, conversations to especially younger coaches on, the do's and the don'ts, even after the meeting, just because I see things, and I try not to, emasculate them in front of the team or the coaches,
Never
or
a good
the players. Yeah. But if I had to get on them, I will. But again, if I'm gonna get on them about something big or whatever, I always try to make it a private conversation or email or whatever. So that's what I try to do.
How many? Real quick, Coach. How many kids on your team total?
About 90. We have 3 teams: freshman, JV, and varsity.
Okay, and then how many assistants do you have? How do you break that down?
So we have about 13 coaches.
Damn, that's nice.
Yeah. But it's very
well. That's another question. How many paid or how many stipend or?
Yeah. So great question. Again, I am blessed with great men who care about kids and who care about the program. So we have 7 stipends, but we all put some money in a pot, basically,
right.
And then we give cash to the volunteer coaches, and so they all get paid.
Cool. That's really cool. Yeah, that is
cool. Except one, because he kind of just does it more for fun, and he comes like twice a week, and he just wants to be there.
No, we all have that. Listen, we all have that guy on staff. We all have that guy shows up on Friday night. So you know what I mean? Like, it's all good.
Exactly. Yeah. So we don't pay him, but everyone else gets some sort of, money. And, if they came to the off season stuff, then I'll try to give them a little more, from that pot. And again, the assistant coaches who are on stipends, again, I'm very grateful for them because they have a heart to say, okay, yeah, that's fine. If you got to take some from the stipend that's already small, to give to the other coaches, then let's do it. So that's how we make it work with 13 coaches. But, we have out of those 13 coaches, 11 are varsity coaches, but 2 of those coaches, on Monday nights, coaching the JV game. And then the other 2 are like freshman coaches.
Very cool.
It's a nice breakdown.
Yeah, no, it's it's great. You have a lot of volunteer coaches, which helps, and it's I think that's great because the longevity that helps a ton. So you get more of those guys that want to help out. Being in a public school. What are some of the challenges that you deal with? Because I'm sure. Do you have to play private schools in your state championships and those kind of things, or
you guys are all linked to? Are you guys all grouped together? Just like,
okay.
Yeah. So we're in 3A, and 4 is the biggest. 4A is the biggest. We're in 3A, but 3A, 4A, it's pretty comparable in terms of competition. But unfortunately, in 3A, the two powerhouses are the two Catholic schools, Eastside Catholic and O'Day. And so we always say, hey, to win the state title in 3A, you have to get through the Catholics.
Yeah. No, it's you see now in Jersey, there's 5 groupings, right? Group 5 being the biggest, and then there's 2 private school groupings that they kind of play their own, you know what I mean? Like they have their own playoffs and everything is. I mean, but only in the last couple years have we. I mean, we used to have 30-something state champions.
Oh wow.
So now they actually play down to a true group championship. So there's, 5 public school state championships and then 2 parochial state championships. And they literally we have a game. The last one will finish on Wednesday night. And that's only because they were, they played on Thanksgiving. Both of them had regular season games on Thanksgiving. So, and that's only in the recent years that they've done that. It's, and it's a lot. Like, for each group, 16 teams make the playoffs, and they do it geographically based off North Jersey, South Jersey, Central Jersey. I mean, for a small state, we have a lot of there's a lot of kids that play and a lot of schools around here. And listen, even if you're traveling from the top to the bottom of the state, it's only 3 hours. But to have some of those guys travel, it's a little different. But they separate it once the playoffs start, which is very different. Obviously, it's different in every state. But I know like Florida does everybody linked all in together as well. So I mean, that's got to be tough a little bit as a public school. What are some of the other challenges that you deal with as a public school coach? Do you have to battle the Catholics for kids going there or leaving you? Is that something that's a cool issue?
Yeah. So before I get into that, I told you guys I like to visit programs to learn every year, and I went to right before COVID. I went to Bergen Catholic.
Oh shit, buddy! Okay,
and Don Bosco.
Okay.
Yeah, like I went to one day I went to Bergen and sat in on their meetings and
nice.
Watched practice, and then the next day I went to Don Bosco and did the same thing. So obviously you guys have great football out there. So, but anyways.
No, that's really cool. And those guys are open door policy. You know what I mean? Like, everybody always wants to be like, it's this, it's that. Look, because I mean, I coached at Bosco for a year back in 2012. Like, it was one of the greatest experiences ever. You know what I mean? I mean, we traveled a bunch. You played a national schedule. I mean, those guys literally it's like the California League. Like, they beat up on each other all year, and then they have to go beat up each other again to win the playoffs, right? And not many public schools want to play them and whatnot. But like, you saw the gold standard of what it is. I mean, the meetings, film and practice, all that stuff. Plus, it's different because they're both all boys schools. That's to me, I think that's a huge piece of it. And you definitely saw the gold standard. That's pretty cool.
Sure. Yeah, it was cool. But I mean, obviously the obvious disadvantage is, they can recruit. They have a 50-mile, well, at least in Washington, they have a 50-mile radius to be able to recruit. So that's very far and way wider than our range, and they can just openly pretty much recruit, and obviously financially and just support from parents, those are obviously better than a city school, especially an inner city school. But we haven't had, like, at least from our program, like a kid go to one of those schools while they are in our program,
right?
We've lost some kids to like other public schools in the area, but it hasn't been too bad. Now we have lost some like 8th graders, that are supposed to come to Lincoln, but they went to O'Day or Eastside Catholic because they got to them early. But now it's just, again, having a transparent conversation with you guys. It doesn't even matter if it's private school, like a lot of people I feel like trying to recruit kids through like training facilities and 7-on-7 games.
Oh shit, yeah.
And so that's something that I'm seeing the last couple years more and more of, and I don't like it, and I don't know. I don't know how long I want to coach. If this is the way it's going, and
It's all
um,
going, yeah.
Yeah, it's
and
totally
so
understandable.
It's all, you know what it's all going to? It's all going to this the whole culture in all sports, not just football. Right? Football used to be immune to a lot of football still is immune probably forever to a certain extent, as far as within the school system, meaning football has, it's hard to just strap together a bunch of guys and make a really good football team without a school structure. Like some people have tried to do those things and most of them have failed, other than maybe IMG and maybe a couple of others.
Yeah.
But so that I think football has a certain level of immunity other that soccer and baseball don't have to that, because these guys will go play, year round. Sometimes don't play in their high school teams. They have some immunity to that because you need that competition, you need that film. But what there isn't an immunity to is that AAU culture, and that part is very, very difficult to navigate. Like very, very difficult, where anybody can recruit any player for anything, for any training, club, segment, anything at any time, and haven't been in that industry for a long, long time. That it's one of those things where there is nothing that you can hold to it, because the player could be at another place the next day, and you might have a fantastic relationship with that athlete. He starts training here, or he joins this club, and all of a sudden changes his attitude towards you, and it has zero to do with anything you did. So that part is hard, because that AAU culture is permeated every single sport in different ways, obviously, but every single sport. And football was one of the last to be able to
absolutely
that.
They held on to it for as long as possible, but now with the growth of flag football with 7-on-7, and the
That's
whole
a good point. Flag will take it to a whole nother level, because they're starting flag at
young,
literally 5-6 years old at rec. So
and flag is way less expensive to put together than tackle teams, so the financial part comes into it. Parents see flag as a safer football, right? So that adds a whole different aspect to it. It's a different season, right? Like you're not playing, or you are, you can do it more than just one, right? Where football's fall based pretty much all the time. Now, hey, I want to do football. What else can I do? Okay, well, we have an indoor flag league. We have 7-on-7 in the spring. It was immune for a really long time, but it's slowly now creeping in and only expanding more. Coach, do you have spring football in Washington?
We do, but it's late. We don't. So schools go late in Washington because we start later. We typically start school after Labor Day. So
it's comparable to here. It's the same.
Okay. So we go to
Jersey's kind of like that. We're not down south where we start in August. Like that's very rare.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So school usually goes till like June 21st or something like that.
Same.
So they don't let us start spring football until track season's over.
Oh,
and so
shit.
that's usually after Memorial Day.
Yeah.
Dave loves that. Dave's a track guy, so Dave loves spring football. He loves that stuff.
And
he gets all juiced. Okay. And we don't have spring football. We don't have it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we start after Memorial Day weekend, and it's about 3 weeks long until basically
that's phenomenal. And I think that's perfect. That would be awesome. I would love that. So instead, what they do in Jersey, since there's no football, like no spring ball, you can't, after the meet of champions track championship, you could literally, if you wanted to, hand out full pads and start football season.
Oh, okay.
So you could literally go all summer, 5 days a week, if you really wanted to be crazy, and rock. Now, it doesn't count towards, your acclimation period that needs to be done when you're officially starting. But so many guys have now done that because you can now have contact when you haven't had it because you're not allowed to do anything organized with a football from the time the season ends, right? So that'll be Wednesday of this week until track ends. You can't do anything with a football, like nothing organized. You can lift, you can run, you can do all this other stuff. No football drills whatsoever until the end of track, which look, like you said, school ends late. Same for us. If we could get a 3-week window, that would now have guys would be less in tune to go and start practice in June, right? I mean, look, I'll just reference our program. We brought in a new offensive guy, new defensive guy to kind of just install 2 brand new systems in the second year of a new regime, kind of going into where we're at now. And we were on the field 4 days a week, like all summer, like no pads, but we were rocking and rolling. And look, there's a lot of programs that give out helmets, give out shoulder pads. They want to get acclimated. They feel like they need to like make up time. They feel like it's like a press to it when, I don't know, there's still something for me to be said that like summer is summer, maybe 2 days a week on the field, I'll lift another, like 4 days. It's a lot. It really is.
Yeah.
The kids I think that's why the burnout rate gets so crazy too,
For sure.
and there's a lot of, Jersey's different, obviously, because of like the weather, right? So like kids play basketball, wrestling is a big thing. Like indoor sports matter. Multiple sport guys are big here. Like, I mean, I'm not saying you have your 3 sport athletes, but the focus on one sport only, and especially football. Now, guys may play flag football all 3 seasons now, right? Because they can do that indoor and whatnot. But the weather just changes things a little bit here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
100%. And lacrosse is big too.
Yeah. East Coast, yeah.
Shit, yeah, dude.
Coach, what is your program look like year round? What do you guys do? How does that work for you?
Yeah, so we start end of January. Well, we have a players' interest meeting in January when we come back from break. And then we start our, it's like I would say 16-week off-season program from end of January till spring football, basically till June. And yeah, we go in the morning because we found that that's the best. There's no excuses. There's no dentist appointments. At 6:15
haircuts.
Yeah, and then they can play other sports still. And they can go to tutoring, they can get jobs. So, yeah, we've gone with this model for ever since even in Hollywood, and we brought it to Lincoln, and
I remember you posting a lot about that aspect, and I actually put my head coach on it. I said, look at this, like this guy does it out here. He's always done the morning workout aspect.
Yeah,
I think the kids feel a certain way about it too with the morning workouts because they don't feel like they're slighting the sport that they're in, and they don't feel kind of like they have to make a choice. Now, look, obviously you want, within the building, you want an atmosphere where all the coaches are supportive of everybody. But I mean, look, that's a perfect world. And we know that doesn't happen. Dave and I have been a part of some programs where other coaches in other sports looked at us like we had 10 heads. You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean these guys got to lift for football? It's fixed. Well, like, hey, bud, like we're trying to do something here, We do the same thing. We offer 2 spots. Like we offer mornings for some of those guys that play other sports, but some guys like mornings anyway. I mean, we start really early too. First bell rings at like 7:10, and then we're out of school. Yeah, we're out of school by 1:30.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is a totally different schedule, like different than anything I've ever been a part of.
Yeah.
We have a lot of kids that really work, they only go to school for like half a day. They're like tech kids. They work a lot. So it's a different type of culture in terms of that, but they love the morning workouts. Are you running them? Do you have a strength coach? Like, how does that break down?
Yeah. Again, we're very fortunate to have coaches who, give a lot of time in the off season. So there's usually about 6 coaches in the morning. So we try to break up, the coaches in the weight room. So there's a strength coach that's in the weight room with maybe 2 other coaches. And then I'm in the gym. I'm kind of in the gym, like I'm in charge of the gym part, the running, the agility stuff. And then I have usually about 2 guys with me as well. So,
cool.
Yeah, our kids do both. Within the hour and 20 minutes we're there. So, we'll all warm up together, but then half of them will go in the gym, half will be in the weight room, and then at halftime they'll switch. So they get everything. And so, yeah, it's really great that we have all those coaches there.
Yeah, I think that makes a big difference being able to do that. Do you, in the spring, you just continue your lifting program? What are there any things that you guys do that's different? Like, do you work on stuff like speed, or is that part of your program?
Yeah, so we adapted some of the stuff from like Feed the Cats and timing them, posting their times and through a QR code, and that's really gotten a lot of excitement amongst the kids in terms of
man, they don't want to be at the bottom of that list, dude. They don't want to be.
Don't.
They don't want to be there, man. They don't like that. They don't like that.
I'm pretty like fully convinced that kids really. They're not going to run full speed unless they're being timed, and
Dave talks about it all the time.
Yeah, and the way you get faster is to run full speed, and so we've been doing that the last 2 years.
That's so cool.
But we kind of go in phases. Like when we start our morning workouts in end of January, we start with we always start every year with what's called the Aid Maker, where we it's an activity where we set the culture, and they're in that Aid Maker phase until we feel as coaches like the culture has been set and the kids know the expectation of how to work out and how to work hard. And then after we get through that phase, which sometimes takes a couple weeks, sometimes will take 4 weeks, depending on the group. After that, we start really focusing on strength and speed. And then the last 6 weeks of our morning workouts, we do a draft pick, and we call it Black Crew competition. Yeah, and,
that's cool.
We choose captains, and they choose their team, and then everything for those 6 weeks is point-based. GPA, behavior, attendance, competition in the gym, all that stuff. Awesome. And so it's a pretty cool way to end the morning workouts leading into spring football. So yeah, it's pretty structured. We try to make it fun, competitive. But yeah, kids really hate the Aid Maker part because like they're basically running gassers until our culture has been set. And but yeah, kids love it, and we get usually 60 to 75 kids, and it's all voluntary. Yeah, it's all voluntary, but if you make it fun, if you give them purpose, they'll show up.
And they don't want to be at the bottom of that list when you rank, record, and publish. I'll tell you that much. You know what I mean? And look, we've had Tony Holler on numerous times. We've had all of his guys on to talk about the whole, the Feed the Cats, mindset and all of that that goes along with it. Dave and I are both in agreement that, look, football's a little different. Like, there needs to be some of that, conditioning, grit, right? Like, there's a fine line between like we're killing kids or we're just like, sometimes you got to give a little bit of that. It's just because that's just football. Like, football is that a little bit, you know what I mean? But I think, look, we love that stuff. I think it's really important in that. My question is, have you seen your injuries decrease in terms of soft tissue by going to more of a Feed the Cats approach?
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's still to be determined, because last year when we did start it, we did have a good amount of injuries. But then this year, we were really good with injuries. So I'm still not sure on that one.
Gotcha.
Well, I think with the Feed the Cats, I think the hardest part to be able to determine is if you're kind of still doing conditioning and not doing it all in. It's kind of hard to measure. Like, if you're still utilizing, I utilize a good amount of that stuff. Like, I've gone away from conditioning completely. I kind of went away from that a while back, but conditioning.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, listen, you went away. We haven't conditioned in a while.
Focus more on speed and in practice play, and I think that part is helped and focused on doing the speed in the beginning. You know, if you're going to do anything of that, like doing it at the beginning, which I think has helped. But it's you know, it really goes the whole feed the cats thing. I hate this. It's the Charlie Francis system, just kind of refined. I don't know if you know what Charlie Francis is, but he was basically a sprint coach. Who's Ben John? Remember Ben Johnson, the guy who got in trouble? You heard who got in trouble? He was the famously for coaching Ben Johnson. That's what he originally was famous for. But he really had some great principles of developing speed, which then translated. For a while, it went away because of the whole steroid thing. So people didn't want to touch it. They kind of associated. But really what's come back is that a lot of the principles that he had, which is where Feed the Cats has really evolved from, the principles that he had with the like central nervous system stuff and not overtaxing that. When you tax it, you know, you kind of got to recover. That all comes from him. So I as a guy who's like been a speed guy for a long time and obviously coached football for a long time, but I love it's kind of repurposed in a way. But one of the things that Tony did a great job of, and I think you're doing it, is the rank, record, publish, like making that more important thing is something that I really think is really a big deal with athletes and really helps them to see where they progress. So no matter what their age is, that is a big thing on it. But I actually have to jump. I love hearing what you're doing. It's phenomenal. And I'll let Derek finish with you, but it's really great having you on. And
thank you.
Maybe now that the season's over, maybe we can, you know, talk a little bit of scheme without you know, giving the farm away. You know what I mean? So but I got to run. It's great meeting you. And
you too, Coach. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Coach. You know, look, I think there's a bunch. Look, honestly, like I said, with the Feed the Cats, you know, mentality and whatnot, like the thing I've seen based off of like all the guys that we've talked to, the guys that have really like embraced that 100%, dove into it, like that's all they do, to me, are smaller programs. Like, you know what I mean? Like their roster sizes are smaller. They really need to save guys because those guys go both ways or they never leave the field. Like, you know, a key injury to them could be the season. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they have to dial it back like that. For bigger programs, I think, like, you know, you're talking 90 kids. Look, even mine's like 50, somewhere around there, you know. I just think that there's a level of, you know, it's still football. You still got to do some of these things. Plus, I think, like, the blowback from people that just don't understand it. You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean you don't tackle in practice? What do you mean you don't, you know, you're not out there, quote, grinding, or you're running gassers or conditioning, right? That old school type of mentality. It's really hard to swing with a lot of parents or administrators that, like, they don't, you know, everybody coaches the way they were coached. And for most of us, that's how we were coached, right? Like, you were coached hard. You were coached in a disciplinary type of militant fashion where you were told kind of what to do. And if you really weren't like crushing guys, you know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe you dialed it back a little bit on Thursday and then you're good to go on Friday, right? So to change that whole old school mantra is really a lot. And a lot of guys just, I feel like, aren't willing to take that risk because they're scared to get fired in reality. Like that's kind of what I see. I don't know if anybody around you and other programs have embraced it. There's not many here in Jersey that are really all in, other than a couple. But they've seen the fruits of the labor, man. Like, the less injuries, I think, is the biggest factor that goes into it. Right now, look, you're always going to have your breaks or whatever it is, but that's soft tissue stuff. That's nobody's pulling hamstrings, nobody's quads, nobody's, you know, even ankles, right? Like, even rolling an ankle is a 4 or 5 week, could be a season killer in a guy in a key spot that has to use that stuff. I think that's what the appeal is, to be honest, for me. Like, health. Keep guys healthy. Because I know for me, with a roster of about 50, if I lose a certain amount of guys, like, you know, the development aspect, like that's important too. Talk about that a little bit, Coach. As a public school guy, right? We don't get to go out and pick our kids. We're getting what we get. Talk about that development from, 8th graders coming in, freshman year coming in as sophomores, that JV, right? Like, what does that development look like within your program?
Yeah, no, I'm very involved with our freshman program because it's very important, and
it's the key, man.
So right away when they can join us for spring football and on, and
that's
so
awesome.
So as soon as they come, I'm usually heavily involved, like with taking attendance, so I can get to know them.
Dude, that's like a trick to the trade. These guys don't get it, man. Just take attendance for the young kids. You'll learn their names. You'll have it in 3 days. Like, I do it all the time. I coach the JV, and I absolutely love it. You know what I mean? Like, because that development, like, that's so pivotal. And now those guys that are literally like tackling dummies for an entire year are bought in because you make Monday fun, or you make Monday, like, I'm also the special teams coordinator. So it's, hey, man, play good on Monday. Now you're on kick return Friday night, and that's all you're doing. That buy-in, so big, especially, and like the freshmen coming in, like, we try not to play freshmen on varsity unless you're like a freak of nature, right? Like, unless you're like an anomaly, we try and keep them literally freshmen. We don't really even like to bring them up for JV, even if we have like, only in like emergency purposes for like injuries or something, will we do that. But that's such a big builder. Kenny Simpson actually put on Twitter today. He's like, other than the head coach, blank coach on a football staff, dictates more wins than others. Like, dude, your freshman coach is so key, right?
Yeah.
That buy-in to create that. How does it work with you guys?
Yeah. So, so like I said, I'm pretty involved in it, and then we practice all together. So,
that's awesome.
the varsity, JV, C team, we practice all together, and so they're getting varsity coaching like during individual periods and all that, and
same verbiage, right? Like same things.
Yeah,
we're all calling it the same stuff, man. Like, that's just so big.
Yeah, and so, they're very important to us, and our meeting on Sundays to set the JV and C team roster. Like, I'm heavily involved in that, and I make sure that everything's said and the right people are playing, and all that stuff, and we take attendance on everyone, and so the young guys.
Funny how those JV coaches, right? All of a sudden you see certain guys playing positions. You're like, wait a minute. You're like, buddy, he's not a running back. Like, what are we doing? Yeah. Like, hey, dude, he's a safety. Why is he? What's he doing playing linebacker? Like, oh, well, coach, like, buddy, like, this is where we put him. This is what he's doing. Like, it's funny how that works with the younger guys, and I love it because, like, for us, JV wise, right? Like, I'm the head JV coach, but I have an OC and a DC, and those guys, then one calls the offense, one calls the defense. I just kind of monitor it, and like, because it was funny last year when we came in as a new program, like, those guys had never called plays, like, whether it be offense or defense. So I looked at it like, my head coach was like, hey, you're the guy, you can do it any way you want. Like, would I love to call plays for JV? Absolutely. But you know what? Like, give the O-line coach his, you know what I mean? Let him call it, right? Yeah. And, hey, I can help you with the pass game or whatever you need. And then the secondary coach, he calls the defense. So now he can start to, just, you want to prep your assistant coaches to know and to move up the chain, right? Like, I think that's part of like calling as a coach, is to get your guys ready if they want to go be that, or to just, they should have that knowledge, right? Like, the O-line coach should not only know run game. He's got to be able to understand a pass game and call it. The DB coach has to know what the front guys are doing, right? Otherwise, especially, we talked about it earlier, the way assistants are now, like, anybody can go and do a 10-minute individual with 1,000 cones and a ball and figure out what we're doing. But Are you buying into the bigger picture? Do your individual segments and drills match up what we're teaching today? Are you calling it the same stuff? Are we talking the same language when it comes to it? You know what I mean? I think that's so key in the development of your players, because those guys are, as sophomores and freshmen, like, you just want them to come back for the next year. You know what I mean? Like, and then if you find a player in it, okay, but you should leave, after your JV season going, hey, this guy's going to help us here. This guy's going to help us here. Or at least maybe they should be even stealing snaps by the end of the year, right? Like, hey, this guy can go in and get you a series on D, or this guy's all over special teams, right? I mean, shit, I love it because I'll take all those guys. Give them to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll take it. I call it the island of misfit toys, dude. Like, let's go. But it's a 33% of the game that high school guys don't really focus on. And if we can buy in and have really good players, dude, we're going to win specials every week, which gives us a chance,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no.
I think, look, Coach, you're obviously, like, you've won a lot of games. I think your program and culture is phenomenal. I think your guys buy into what you do. I'm curious to hear your thoughts in comparison. You'd say you're an urban school, correct?
Yeah.
Right. So in comparison, what do you think are some of the things you deal with in comparison to some guys that might be suburban, or, maybe just not the same dynamics that you have within your building? What are some of the issues that you see? And maybe they're not even issues, just things that you deal with or have to coach up more, I guess, maybe off the field in terms of program based. What are some of those things in comparison to some of the other schools that you deal with that maybe other guys as head coaches just don't have to deal with?
Yeah, I mean, we all have to deal with issues, and there's different issues, like in the suburbs or even private schools, like we don't have to deal too much with, like, parents, because they're just not super involved, and there's not too many, like, helicopter parents, because they're busy working or whatever, but I would say just a lot of our kids don't have male figures in their lives, and so you're really, whether you ask for it or not, kind of filling those roles, and and you can just kind of see when a kid doesn't have, male role models, and
absolutely,
and you have to sort of just kind of teach them the way, and so that's probably number one, and then just our kids, they don't. Sometimes they don't have enough to eat at home, so we have to be the provider of, protein shakes and all that stuff.
Little shit.
Yeah. And then just, our kids have to, they can't afford cleats or, just certain things that they need to play with. And, so we have to figure out ways to get them donated or provided for them, and so, yeah, I mean, those are just a few examples of things that we may have to deal with that maybe a suburban school don't.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, and one of the things that we did, right, I referenced it before, right? Like, we do 2 lifting groups a day, right? We do a 5:30 a.m. and then we do an afternoon session. The 5:30 one in the morning is literally just football guys in the weight room. And if we get 15 to 20 guys, like, we're rocking and rolling. And then in the afternoon, the general public population of the school can come in, or other teams or whatever. And then the football guys are in there. Now we're fortunate to have a big enough weight room to house that and handle all of that. But look, those guys that come in the morning, like, look, they're getting up at 5:30 and they're doing something that most adults don't do, right? Or are not willing to do or make that sacrifice, along with their parents who have to get up and drive them, right? And look, we've had parents that are like, look, I'm not bringing my kid 4 days a week in the morning at 5:30. I'm not doing it. I'll bring them 2, but I won't bring them 4, right? Now that's a little unfortunate because the kid wants to be there, but it is what it is. But what we've done, for those guys in the morning is, look, man, like, I'll go turn on the showers for you so it's warm water, right? Or a setup like a little bit of like a training table, right? With like, hey, here's some here's some fruit, or here's some chewy bars, or like some protein bars or whatever. College based, right? Like, hey, colleges, you come out of the weight room, you get some food. Like, you want them to feel like, hey, you're putting in the work. Let me do a little bit something for you. You know what I'm saying? And man, it is amazing what a freaking Nutri-Grain bar, giving it to him, will do for a kid, and the buy-in that now he will have. And he'll talk about that shit all day. He'll go and tell every one of his friends, yo, man, Coach D gave us, we had our training table this morning, It just takes it to another level of, caring. And to me, the whole thing about coaching is, man, when you show those guys that you care more than just like, hey, you're a touchdown, or hey, you're a big catch. When you show them that you care about them on a different level like that, like they'll run through a wall for you. And when they're willing to do that, like now we can really coach, and they trust you. They're not questioning like what it is. Because I think that's the biggest thing today. Kids are always comparing because of social media and because they can see everything and it is what it is. Like they just want to compare to, hey, this or that or whatever it is. So the more you can kind of like bring them in and keep them close to home and, really kind of, hey, man, Coach D cares. Hey, man, Coach, like, you know what I mean? Like he got us breakfast or whatever that is. Like, it just takes coaching to a different level. And now their abilities, you pull things out of those guys. Like that's amazing. Do you see that as well with your guys? Like, you said like a lot of those guys don't have that stuff. Like, look, it's been the same for us, right? Like, we wear khakis and a button down on Fridays, right? Coach, I don't have khakis. All right, buddy. Well, guess what? Like there's going to be a bag in your locker, right? And there's going to be a pair of khakis in there. No need to ask questions. Like you're good. I think when you have coaches on staff that are willing to do things like that and they don't need any recognition for it, we're fortunate to have a really good booster club, dude, that like takes care of the kids on any type of level when it comes to that. Like, you know what I mean? Like that breakfast stuff, like buying chewy bars and fruit, like, hey, Coach D, you're doing that. Keep the receipt. We'll reimburse you for it. Right. Like that's the kind of good stuff that you really like pushes a program instead of just like a team. It makes it more of a program. You agree with that? Uh-oh, did I lose you? Did we lose Coach? Oh, we might have lost Coach. We might have lost them. All right, well, hopefully we get Coach back. Look, viewer, for our viewers, I think everybody would agree that we're dealing with a different type of kid that was raised differently than the old school type of mentality. More individual based, I think. Like a lot of these guys about them, me type of thing. And with football in the ultimate team game, like that's really, really difficult to do, right? I mean, you're talking about a sport where the 5 guys up front have to block in order for you to run a successful play. So anything, it takes a team, 11 guys like on the field, but I mean, it's so much more than that. Coach, like I said, he does a really, really great job of, building the culture and upholding the standard for what Lincoln football is. I think he had a really great model when he started coaching. I think that's a key part too. A lot of younger coaches, are so quick to want to get to the top and want to kind of just go and do their own thing and whatnot. Oh, awesome. We got him back. It's really difficult for these guys to understand like what it's like to be a part of a team or what it's like to be a role guy. And maybe not the star, right? Because especially with social media, how many likes do we get? How many, reposts can we get within it and all that kind of stuff? I think that stuff is just totally different than anything else. Coach, we got you?
Yes.
Awesome.
All right.
No problem. We lost you for a little bit. It's okay. We're all good. I was just saying, Coach, like, I really feel like now with social media, it's really hard to build the team camaraderie and team culture within it. especially for football where it's the ultimate team game. How do you get guys to kind of own their role within a team itself? You know what I mean? Maybe you're not the guy that's catching all the touchdowns or rushing for all the yardage. Like, how do you create that, team aspect within your culture?
Yeah. So, that's always hard. I think we're selfish by nature, and I think, yeah, that's tough, but we just our number one, our first core covenant is love, which in our program means you can depend on me. And so,
Right.
if you say you love your teammates, if you love this team, then you're going to be dependable, and you're going to do what you say you will, because people are depending on you. Love isn't an emotion or a feeling. It's being dependable to someone, and it's a verb. And so that's something that we always talk about. We always preach, hey, when you become a father, are you just going to leave if your kids get sick? It's no, you have to be there through the thick and thin, and so that's something that message is something that we talk about constantly. And again, love being our first core covenant, that's something that really that's important to us. And but two, we try to always recognize, like, we have Abe of the Week, which, and again, it has nothing to do with talent or stats. It's
right.
someone who signified or showed being a great teammate, and so we try to, I read in a book one time, some behavior that gets recognized has a good chance of being repeated. And so
yeah,
we try to point that out and make it a big deal, and post them on social media and all that. Abe of the Week, and then we also do Scout Team Player of the Week, or Scout Team Player of the Day. Actually, every day we pick an offense and a defense scout player, and we try to really say, hey, we won these games on Friday because
of you
guys do. Yeah. And so we just
one of the most
really
underrated things in coaching, Coach. You know what I mean? Recognizing those younger guys. For people that don't know how a football practice is actually structured, and how much of how good you're going to be on Friday night, like how much of that depends on those younger guys or scout team guys. Like, they're literally running the other team's plays for you. And if they're not doing that at a high level, man, like, you always hold your breath on the first series, especially as a DC. I've been there, Coach. Like, you're holding your breath on that first series. Like, all right, what do we got? Because look, it's impossible to replicate whatever the other team is doing on a daily basis. So for those guys to be recognized within your program, I think that's amazing. That's awesome. And I'm sure they buy into it.
Yeah. So those are some of the ways we try to recognize, people who aren't as valuable, and just let them know, hey, everyone's important. And
you are valuable, like, hey, man, you are.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
I really try to do it. Like, we try to do it too. It's always different when it comes from the kids themselves, right? Like, I can say whatever as a coach, but when somebody else in the locker room who's wearing a helmet and shoulder pads says it to you, you know what I mean? Like, hey, buddy, like, you gave me a great look today. I try to create it within our receiver room itself. Like, I coach receivers too, and signal in all the plays on that guy on the sideline. But I try to create that atmosphere within the room itself for the receivers. Like, look, man, like, this group needs to be the best group on the field, right? Like, even if you're not, the starting X or the starting Y or whatever it is, like, every one of you needs to be on a special team, which they're going to be because I'm the coordinator, but that's a little nepotism or whatever, but you guys want to, like, you should be happy for each other, right? Like, when he scores the touchdown, we scored the touchdown because, look, you helped him with his releases this week. Or, we were talking about where's that defender going to be. And when he came to the sideline, you gave him that feedback because you're watching the game. And, hey, when you go and make that special teams tackle, like, that starting X is going to come over and say, hey, man, great job, dude. Like, that's huge. Now we're pinned. We got them pinned deep. I think when you get that collective buy-in within a team itself is when you're really, really cooking with gas.
Yeah, for sure.
Coach, I've taken up too much of your time and talked way too much. I can't thank you enough for coming on and taking the time. It was awesome talking ball with you. I love your culture, love what you do. I love how active you are on social media, just kind of like, bringing awareness to what it is to be a Lincoln High School football player or just a high school football player in general. In the state of Washington and nationally. Like, that's why I love doing this, connecting with guys all over the country, and just talking ball and talking culture stuff. So, Coach, I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Coach. Really appreciate you having me on. I'm glad we were able to make it work.
Hey, man, anything we can ever do for you, please reach out. Like I said, it's awesome. And just continue the process, man. We're all doing God's work. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
All right, buddy.
Coach.
Have a great holiday. Enjoy the time, Coach, and we'll talk soon.
Yes, sir. Have a good night.
Take care. All right, guys. That wraps up another Prospect podcast. Look, Coach is doing, like I said, Coach is doing God's work out in the state of Washington. Really successful program, tough place to coach. Been there 11 years. We all know, I don't think it's stressed enough how hard it is to win a game. In general, just one game, regular season, playoffs, whatever it is, it's really hard to win games in general. But it's not always about wins and losses, right? It's about the development of the young student athlete to become something that maybe you see it in them, but they don't see it themselves. So I think that's key in the development of our youth, and creating that positive culture within a team itself can only help everybody in the long run. So appreciate you guys joining, watching, like, subscribe, follow, whatever it is. Coach Schumann's all over social media. Coach D at NUC Sports on X. I'm on Instagram, whatever it is. Find us, talk to us, reach out, ask questions. We have another good one tomorrow. Craig Kolick will be on. He's another mental health guy, talking about how the positive headspace can move you forward and whatnot. So we'll have him on tomorrow at 10 a.m. We hope to see you guys all there. Like, subscribe, follow. And we will talk to you, or we'll see you tomorrow.